Hello, welcome to Kinstretch. In today's Kinstretch and Chill, we are going to be focusing on shoulder flexion and shoulder abduction. You'll need two blocks, some floor space, a band whose resistance is up to you. I'd probably err on the side of a little bit lighter until you go through this class once, and then you can up the resistance as you feel is necessary, and then a couple of tennis balls. We're going to be starting with our upper body cars. So you can sit, you can be in a kneeling position, you can be in a tall kneeling position. You're welcome to stand if that feels like a better option for you. So any of those are really fine. You're going to grab both of your tennis balls. And we're going to start with our cervical car. So we're going to get really tall through the rest of our spine, find some neutrality through the pelvis by drawing the front and back of your pelvis downwards. You're going to squeeze your tennis balls to about an 8 out of 10. Squeeze the back of your arms a whole bunch. Lengthen the back of your skull upwards. Take a breath. And then begin by tucking your chin down and in. Rotate along collarbones as we rotate to the right. Drop your right ear back. Reach the front of your neck upwards. Turn to the left, find the edge of the collarbone, circle it back to the middle. Let's go a couple more times around. Remember, we're moving at 1 mile per hour as we often do with these cars, so we can start to prime our joints for what is about to come. Let's go one more lap. If your neck feels okay, you're going to try to make the circle a little bit bigger, or maybe add a little bit more tension every time you go around. When you come to the middle, pause, and let's reverse it. Take it all the way to the left. Drop your left ear back. Doing your best to keep the rest of your body still, especially the shoulders. So you might notice your shoulders are kind of shifting side to side, or your rib cage is moving front to back. Do your best to minimize some of that. It's always good to record yourself every once in a while just to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to isolate each of our joints. Last lap around. Circle back to the middle and pause. We're going to take our arms out in front today and then a little bit wider than your shoulders. Keep your palms facing in for our scapular cars. Take a full breath in. Pack the air down, squeeze through the core space, and then lift up to your ears. Rock the shoulder blades back towards your spine. Lower them down towards your hips and let them spread apart away from your spine. Let's keep going like that a few more times. Do your best to keep your elbows straight, your spine really straight, and your rib cage is not moving forward or back because we're doing a really good job of squeezing our core so we can prevent any extraneous movement coming from the rib cage. Let's try the reverse. Pull back, retract. Retract and elevate. Elevate and protract. Protract and depress. And so we're hitting all of these corners. Try to smooth it out as best you can. And do your best to keep your arms parallel to the floor. If you're seeing a lot of up and down movement through your arms, there's probably something happening or some more things happening through the actual arm bone itself. And we want to try to keep still so just the shoulder blades are moving. We're also going to do another set with our arms out to the sides. Now this one is a little bit harder for your brain to wrap around, but do the best you can. Scapular cars with your arms abducted. Take a full breath in, palms facing forward, reach as far as you can. We're going to come up to the ears. You're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together in the back, drop them down, and then push them apart. Okay, so exactly the same thing, but it's going to feel a lot different because your arms are in a different position. So for some of us, it might feel like we're just going up and down. But over time, you'll understand that there's a spherical property to this. And your shoulder blades are actually wrapping forward as well as wrapping back. Let's try the opposite direction. Reverse. Try to visualize the shoulder blades coming into your spine, lifting up, and then spreading wide apart. Like we're trying to lengthen the wingspan from right to left. Let's go one more lap. Beautiful. I'm going to have a seat down onto my shins, but you can stay where you are. We're going to wrap our arm, one arm across our rib cage just to provide a little wall so we're not moving our rib cage forward. Okay, take a full breath in. We're going to take our right arm across, spiral it up towards the ceiling, and then sweep it across the left side of your face. Come on up. All right, this is one of the ranges we're going to be working on today. So see how it feels right now as we pull the right ribs down away from the reach of the bicep upwards, right? Try to find that edge without pain, and then start your transition into internal rotation, continuing to reach the arm all the way back into extension and then coming down to the hip. Let's reverse it, reach back. All right, do your best not to lean forward, but stay really tall through the spine. The intent here is to max out every piece of the car before we transition into the next zone. Let's go one more time. Squeeze a little bit harder on your tennis ball, reach up. If this doesn't feel great for your shoulder right now, experiment by taking your arm a little farther out to the sides so we have more space. Turn your palm out, your elbow out, and remember that rotation is coming from the upper arm bone, so we want to make sure we feel that spiraling action up there, down to the hip, and then reverse, right? Reach back, find that edge, and then continue into that external rotation as we come up and across your face and down. Let's switch sides, take a breath in. Exhale and squeeze the tennis ball. All right, good amount of tension through the arms because we want to make sure that our brain is starting to talk to some of these spaces that we're going to be working on a little more closely today. Down to your hip and reverse extension, right into rotation. All right, so the better we get at the cars, the easier it is to find those boundaries between transition points. All right, and that's all we're doing is we're just drawing a big map in our brain about what the joint looks like, what its capacity is, what its boundaries are like. So your nervous system in an unconscious way can understand how well it can move those joints. Beautiful. We're going to take our arms out in front for our elbow cars. Your biceps are going to spiral up towards the ceiling. So just imagine you've got a big X on both biceps. You're going to try to point them up the whole time. Reach a whole bunch of your shoulder blades spread away from your spine. Take a full breath in. Continue to reach as you bend your elbows. So now the elbows are going to be reaching instead of the fingertips. You're going to turn your palms upwards into elbow pronation and then straighten out your arms. A little harder squeeze on tennis balls if you can. Transition into supination. Bend your elbows, flexion, turn into pronation, and then send them forward, extension. We're going to pause here and reverse it. Keep that pronation, but keep spiraling your biceps upwards. So there's this tensional point here where your upper arm is spinning one way, but your elbow is spinning the other way. So that's part of the challenge here. Keep reaching your elbows out as you bend. Turn down towards you into supination, and then extend both elbows. Let's go one more lap around. Pronation, don't take the bicep with you. Bend, flexion, turn into supination, and then extend out into extension. All right, hug the upper arm bones in. We're gonna hold on to our tennis balls as we do our wrist cars. Take your pinkies in towards each other and then pull the ball into your forearm. You're gonna rock the thumbs out and then keep hugging your upper arms in as we show the tennis balls forward. All right. The hardest part of these, of course, as you've heard me say many times before, is not letting the elbow come into play to the degree that we can. All right, doing our best to make the biggest wrist circles, really more of an elliptical here for the wrist joint that we can. Let's reverse it. All right, so your pinkies and your ring fingers are coming in. You're going to start to turn the tennis balls up towards the ceiling and then pull them forward into wrist extension. Pull your pinkies away from one another as you pull the tennis ball back into your forearm. We're going to keep going like that. Sometimes it's useful to balance something on your forearm so we kind of know at that point where your elbow wants to participate a little bit more than we'd like it to. But this is not an elbow class, so don't feel like you have to do that here. All right, let's take a moment. We're going to do a little bit of spine segmentation. So we're going to come down to hands and knees. If you're able to today, if your body allows it, you're going to sit your heels, excuse me, sit your hips back towards your heels like such. If you would like some block support here, you can slide 1 or 2 blocks underneath your hips. So you don't have to go all the way back. Sometimes our knees don't cooperate with this position, so we want to make sure that we're taking care of our other joints, even though we're focusing on upper body today. But this will help to block the lumbar spine out so we can give you a little bit more effort through the upper spine and the cervical. Now we're going to round our spine. You're going to do your best to keep your lumbar as flexed as it is right now. You're going to start by lifting your chin up And then you're going to reach your chin forward to lengthen out the front of the chest and the front of the throat. Space between your upper tips of your shoulder blades is going to drop down first. And then it's going to feel like we're pulling our rib cage through our upper arm bones. The very last thing to untuck is your lower spine. And we're going to start from the head. So stay nice and tall through the upper arms. Push the floor away from you. Pull the chin back and then slide it down. Try to feel a stretch in your cervical spine before you start the movement at your upper thoracic. Once you max out that range of motion, you're going to lift the space between the upper tips of the shoulder blades, the middle, and the lower tips, and then finally the lower spine will lengthen out into flexion. Let's go one more time in each direction. A little more tension now. Push down through the hands. Try to slide your hands towards you, and then lift your chin. See if you can feel the back of your neck working, pulling you into extension. Max out your extension, and then start that linear drop from the upper spine down into the lower spine. All right, so at this point in full extension, we should feel pretty much our whole spine working in extension. Let's go ahead and slide the chin back, tuck it down. Find your full neck flexion, and then start to lift each part one piece at a time. Keep your breathing as smooth and as steady as you can. Beautiful. Okay. So we're going to start today with some shoulder internal rotation pails. So you can sit on one or two blocks. Even if you can sit on the floor for this, I recommend you being a little bit more elevated just because it'll be easier to rest your arm on your leg. You're going to take one arm out in front of you. Let's start with the right one. And we're going to try to spread the shoulder blade wide away from our spine. So we're not pulling the arm back, we're actually letting the elbow reach forward. Your other shoulder is also going to come forward, so we're not just kind of pushing ourselves out of lengthening the back side of the right shoulder. We're letting the rib cage be somewhere that feels neutral, so we can tension all of this stuff behind us. That's our intent, is to lengthen from the spine through the back of the shoulder, out through the elbow, and down through the outer wrist. You're going to take your left hand, take it on top of your right forearm or wrist. You're going to press yourself down into some internal shoulder rotation. Now, the thing that could happen here is you could potentially sense or see or even feel your shoulder blade coming up to your ear. You're going to try to keep that down today, away from the ear, because it will just help isolate this arm bone moving into this socket. So this is what we're trying to isolate right now. All right, allow yourself to push down to a stretch. You might have a stretch, you might not. Really kind of depends on your body. You're going to continue to reach the elbow forward and push the right chest wall back. So where the arm meets the torso, you're going to try to push that part of your rib cage backwards so we can continue to bow out the back side of that shoulder and see if we can get a more meaningful or a deeper stretch. We're going to hold here for a few more moments. Breathing in and out through your nose if you can, and then trying to take some breath upwards into the shoulder blade area, right? She's got lots of ribs under there. You want to try to almost like puff out the ribs underneath the shoulder blades so we can start to stretch the tissue from the very deepest part of us outward. In a moment here, we're going to try some pails. So we're just layering on a little bit of effort or a little bit of force or load onto what we have stretching. Okay, so we're going to take an inhale. You're going to squeeze your tennis ball a whole bunch. You're going to clamp down on that right hand with your left, and then start to push your right arm up as if we're trying to rotate out of this position, but your left hand is pushing down at the same rate. So we kind of meet in the middle of this stalemate where your right arm is rotating up, your left hand is trying to keep it in place. Start with a little bit. You're going to ramp up to what feels like a 4 or 5 out of 10. If that feels okay, you got no pain, or you're not pushing out of the position, you can ramp up a little bit higher. Ramp up to what feels like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. 9 out of 10. And finally, maybe a 10 out of 10 if your body feels okay with that. 3, 2, 1. We're going to slowly relax. All right, most of us, our bodies will let us go a tiny bit deeper into our range of motion. So you're just using your left hand to assist your body moving into a deeper internal rotation on the right side. Take a full breath in, soft breath out. I'm going to try this one more time. Take a deep breath in, pack the air down into your belly. Now you're going to squeeze a little bit harder through the rest of your body. Start to push up into your left hand a little bit. Start with a 1, 2, ramp up to a 3 or 4. Ramp up to 5 or 6. Ramp up a little bit higher effort. 7, 8, 9. Your safest max effort, which actually might be down by a 3 for you today. Just listen to what you can tolerate today in terms of what your max effort is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Let yourself be pulled into the stretch for another moment if your body's okay with that. And then we're going to let it go and try the other side, right? Your max effort might change day to day depending on what you have. If you worked out one day and the next couple of days you're a little sore, that is probably going to change your end range a little bit. It's going to change your capacity to go to max effort. If you're dealing with an injury or anything like that, or things are tender, or you're stressed, or you're not sleeping well, all of these factors will affect how well you can max effort, right? So your max effort is a day-to-day process. That's why we want to try to stay really consistent so we can kind of get a sense of what our patterning is and what our truest max effort is. Now allow your left shoulder to be pulled down into internal rotation. You're going to avoid the shoulder blade coming up into the ear. We're going to clamp it down using your right hand now on your elbow or your wrist, or your forearm or your wrist, really. Okay. Push the left chest wall back by trying to take the space right next to the arm where it meets the torso. You're just going to encourage the rib cage to push backwards a little bit. So we get this really nice, again, like rounding, not necessarily rounding, but a stretch from spine all the way through the back of the shoulder, down through the elbow and through the outer wrist. Slow breaths. Your breath will determine how deep you go into the stretch. So just try to respond to what your breath is allowing you to do rather than forcing it. Let's go for our first PALS effort. You might go a little bit less on the first one because we're going to do 2. Take a full breath in. Pack the air down. Start to rotate up into your right hand very slowly, right? Feel out these lower intensities because they might tell you something interesting about what you might need to work on here too. If holding a lower intensity feels really challenging for you, then you might want to spend more time in these lower intensities. If you feel okay, you're going to ramp up a little bit higher, maybe a 5 or 6 moderate intensity. And then keep ramping up till you find an appropriate max effort for this side for today. 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Let yourself be pulled down into that stretch. Take a few more breaths here. Let's try one more time. Take a full breath in. I'm going to pack the air down. You're going to squeeze a little bit harder. Everything is working now. Keep reaching your elbow away from you as you start to push up into the right hand. Remember, the rotation should be coming from the upper arm bone. So that's where we want our effort to initiate from, right? We're not just pushing with the wrist. We're not just pushing with the forearm, but you're just using them as leverage to get more effort into the shoulder capsule, which is where we're working today. Ramp up your effort to a 5 or 6. Ramp up to a 7 or 8. Back off as needed for today's work. Ramp up to your 8, your 9, maybe your 10 out of 10. Your safest max effort at this moment for today. 5, 4, 3, 2, and slowly relax back into that stretch. We're going to switch back to the first side. Switch your tennis ball over to the right. This time we're going to do some capsule cards. You're going to continue to reach your elbow way away from you. We're going to go a little bit more intensity with the capsule cards. You're going to imagine you could nearly crush the ball. So I want you to squeeze as hard as you can and as hard as you can really maintain here. Okay, all we're going to do is go from internal rotation and back out into external rotation. We're going to try to hit our end ranges here. Again, the shoulder blade is going to stay in place. We're not moving it up or down. It's just staying still. Take a full breath into your nose. It's a good squeeze on the tennis ball, and let's rotate down, internal rotation, and then back out, external rotation. Okay, and this is all we're doing. You can use your knee to push your arm downward so we can find a little bit more effort through the posterior side of your shoulder capsule. That's really the back side of your shoulder. And you're trying to hit your end ranges, right? When you hit your end ranges, see if you can squeeze out a tiny bit more without anything else moving. And just kind of see what that feels like. We're going to go for about 30 more seconds here. The effort is really coming from the squeeze on your tennis ball and the effort of pushing your arm down into your leg. And of course, squeezing into your end ranges, that's going to be a different kind of effort. Your tennis ball can face towards you, it can face the middle, maybe face out. So you might want to play around with some elbow positioning too, depending on how you're feeling or where this feels most productive in your shoulder. 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Same thing. Take a full breath in. Exhale, push down into your leg, squeeze your tennis ball, rotate internal and external. Okay, and just note the differences between sides. You might have a different range of motion. A lot of people do, and that's okay. We're not trying to make you symmetrical, but we are trying to give your sides the same capacities, right? So being able to tolerate the same level of force, whether it's slow or fast, that's really what we're looking for in terms of balance. We're not looking for necessarily the same range of motion or symmetry in that sense, but we want them to be functionally the same, or at least as close to the same as we can get them. Right. Holding the same amount of effort, being able to tolerate the same amount of load, being able to tolerate the same amount of speed as we do speed work. We have about 10 more seconds here. Continue to lengthen your elbow away from you. Continue to push your rib cage back into retraction. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly relax. Okay, now we're going to do capsule cars one more time. We're going to use both tennis balls this time in bilateral abduction. So this is really important as we do our abducted work today. We're going to reach your elbows as far apart as you can. If this feels a little pinchy on the tops of your shoulders, you're going to lower your arms down a little bit lower than your shoulders. And for most people, that will be okay. If you need to, you'll just lower it down a little bit more closely to your waist. But the action is still going to be the same, exactly what we did. We're just taking the arms in a slightly different position. Okay, we're going to take an inhale. Sit up nice and tall. Pack the air down. Squeeze everything real tight. Rotate forward, internal rotation, and then back out into external rotation. Okay. The thing here is keeping the rib cage really still, especially as we wind back into external rotation. You just don't want to pop the rib cage forward. So keep the sternum really heavy as you continue to rotate forward and back. Steady breath. In and out through the nose, or in through the nose and out through the mouth. Imagine your elbows getting wider, right? Like you're trying to reach them apart to either side of your room. Right, we'll feel a good amount of work through the shoulder, especially through the grip, right? Your arms are probably gonna get tired, and that's okay. It's kind of what we're looking for. A little bit of fatigue to help prime the joints so that we're ready to go towards our full max effort when we get to more specific work. All right, maybe close your eyes if that feels okay for you. We have about 15 more seconds. See if you can sense the work, the things that are doing the work, right? Get in tune with what muscles are doing the rotation here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly relax. All right. Now we're going to be starting with some flexion work here. We're going to be down on the floor, and we'll need a couple of blocks for this. Now, depending on your range of motion here, we might have to play around with the height of the blocks. You could even use a low table, or anything else that you have in your house that can serve as like a platform. All right, so we can do as high as 2 blocks stacked this way. You can use more blocks if you have them. But mostly we want to just play around with the height of the block so we make sure that we're as close to our end range as we can be here. Meaning when I'm on my belly and I'm reaching my arm forward and my head is down, I want to be in a position where I can't really lift off the blocks. Why? Because we're trying to improve or increase the range of motion. So if we're not butting right up against our existing end range and then we try to go for more, we're just going to be working the same tissue that we already have access to. We're not actually opening up more space. So we want to bring you into an end range where you truly can't lift off, And then we condition those tissues to give you more space in this process. So I'm just going to give you a few moments here to find what feels right for you. Okay, pause the video if you need to. And then we're going to stay here for a little bit in the stretch. One thing that I will offer, something that if you have very flexible shoulders and you don't have a ton of things to stack underneath your hands, this is something that everyone can do. We're just going to kind of lift the rib cage up. I'm going to try to exaggerate this best I can so you can see it. I'm going to lift the rib cage up and then we're going to pull it down, almost like we're trying to dip our collarbones down and then place, and then you're kind of slide the rest of your body to accommodate. And that will just give us a little more sense of a bowing stretch, meaning we're trying to take one end point at our wrist and stretch it a little farther away from our other end point, our, in this case, our upper shoulder. Take a slow breath in, slow breath out. One more thing to note, you're going to keep, if you're already there and you're good to go, just stay. If you need to adjust, like if you have some compression or some pain or anything that just doesn't feel good up near your collarbones or at the top of the joint, you're going to maybe take your arm out to the side a little bit so you have some more space. So anywhere in this zone up next to your ear or kind of out to the side a little bit is really a fine place to work. We just want to make sure that we're targeting the right tissues that feel like they need attention in your body. So you don't have to look like this setup. You're going to look like your own setup. A few more breaths here in the stretch. And then we're going to layer on some pails and rails. So our pails is going to add some load to the stuff that is stretching. So your brain can start to understand how to produce force in this stretched position. And your rails is going to try to bring you into a deeper range of motion. Let's try our first round. We're going to go for 2. Take a full breath in. Squeeze everything real tight, your bum, your legs, everything else. You're going to start to push your hand down into the block. A little bit at first. You're going to ramp up your effort a little bit more. Ramp up to 50% or 5 out of 10. Ramp up to 7 out of 10, 70-ish, 75%. Ramp up a little higher if you come across any pain or you're pushing out of the position. Back off as you need to. We want this to be as pain-free as possible. Find your safest maximum effort. Push down now as hard as you can without pain. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now attempt to lift, right? Really, you're just making your hand as light as you can by squeezing the back of your shoulder, right? I'm at my end range. I can't lift off the block. That's the intent here. 5, 4, just squeeze as hard as you can, the back of your shoulder. 3, 2, 1, slowly relax. Okay, so that should give us a little more slack. All you're going to do instead of adjusting the height of the blocks, you're going to take your rib cage and try to slide it down a little bit more. Full breath in. Slow breath out. We're going to try one more round. Take a full breath in. Start to push. Push it down into your block. All right, don't overcomplicate it. Just push straight down. Ramp up to 50%. Ramp up a little higher, 75%. Back off as you need to. You know what to do. Ramp up to 80%, 90%. Your safest maximum effort. Kind of push those blocks, smash those blocks into the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lengthen the back of your skull by tucking your chin, and now try to make your hand as light as possible. Okay, we're not going to lift if we're at our end range. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly relax. All right, give yourself a moment in the stretch, and then we're going to try the other side. Okay, you don't have to turn around, but I am going to turn around. Now, my right shoulder has a little bit more range of motion than my left shoulder, but I probably don't need to adjust the blocks. All I'm going to do is adjust how my body is positioned in the stretch, which means I'm going to really reach through my palm a whole bunch. When I come down, I'm going to lift my rib cage up and try to slide my collarbones down away from my arm. Right? And that action of just trying to reach a little bit more in opposite directions should give you a little more stretch without needing to stack the blocks up anymore. I'm going to stay here for about a minute. Nice slow breaths. As we are working on upper body, do your best to kind of breathe up into the armpit, right? All these ribs under here get awfully sticky and congested because there's just a ton of stuff layered over top of one another. Slow breaths in and out through your nose. Do your best to stay relaxed here. Right? The only tension we want at this point is the amount of tension that we need just to hold yourself in position. Right? We're not pushing yet. We're not pails and railsing yet. We want your body to acclimate to these things in, the safest way. Because when your body learns how to soften into certain positions, it gets easier for you to go into those positions because it's no longer a threat. Right? We want to expose you to a lot of time in these things. So it no longer becomes a threatening thing for your nervous system, but an invitation now to go into those places. Let's try our first pails rails here. Take a breath in. Squeeze everything nice and tight, right? So now we want a lot of full body effort. You're going to push down into your block. Start with a little bit, 25%. Ramp up to 50%. Ramp up to 75%. 90%. And your safest max effort. You guys know you're going to back off if you need to. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make your hand as light as possible. Squeeze the back of your shoulder to help that happen, right? You see, I'm not lifting off the block. I can't lift off the block. I'm at my end range. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Keep your arm the same. Just shift your rib cage back a little bit. See if you can find a new stretch. All right. Every new stretch is new tissue that we haven't trained yet. Slow breath in. Slower breath out. Let's try one more round. Full breath. Drive down into your blocks. Nice and slow, like you're driving up a hill. 25%. 50%. 75%. Make sure you're feeling the effort where you feel the stretch. That's the key. Find your safest maximum effort here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction. Squeeze the back of your shoulder. Right? Get your hand as light as you can by squeezing the back of your shoulder. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Stay here for another breath in through the nose, out through the nose or mouth. All right, folks. Now we're going to continue to work in flexion, but we're going to move on to some passive range liftoffs and some eccentric neural grooving. Now we're going to superset these two things together. This time we're going to move kind of towards your end range in flexion, but we're going to back out of the end range a little bit so we can actually lift off. I'm going to give you two choices for a setup. If your knees are feeling okay today and you're feeling maybe a little bit daring, because this is a harder position, because your spine is in such a way that you can't use it to help quite as much. So we have one option come into kind of a child's pose or collapsed quadruped. Our liftoff is simply going to be lifting off into our end range positioning. Now in this position, I can lift pretty high, so I'm going to stack a block underneath. We basically want to be able to lift off into the last few inches, maybe 5 or 6 inches of our range, so we can start to condition our body to be better at getting into those ranges. Okay, so our liftoffs are going into our end range via this active movement. Okay, so we can also lie down for this on your belly, which will just be slightly different. Neither one is better or worse for today's purposes. It's just about what position feels okay for you to be in so you can actually put out some effort and do some work. Right, so this position would also be good for me. Now, if you're lifting your arm and it's going like, 12 inches up above the floor, then you're going to stack your blocks up a little bit higher, right? This is a slightly easier position for me because now I can involve a little bit of spinal extension. So I'm going to be going a little bit higher so I can stack my blocks up, okay? So we want to be this height. We want it to aid us a little bit into our end range, but not so much that we're having to lift a million miles off the ground, right? We want to shorten that distance just a little bit, okay? I'm going to choose the collapse version. You can choose whatever you'd like. Now we're going to superset this with our eccentric knurl grooving, which means we're going to take our blocks and now we're going to teach our limbs how to lengthen as we're loading them. So this one's real easy, but challenging to execute, as a lot of these things are. You're going to push your blocks down. You're going to continue to push your blocks through the floor, but you're going to use your hips now to pull yourself back into your full range of motion. When you get to the bottom, you're going to relax and then come back up. So really, we want to go into a range of motion that we're still able to push down into our blocks. That's kind of the key here. Now, I'm not going to dump my spine into the floor. I'm going to lift my rib cage and kind of lead with the sternum as I push my hips back. So as I'm driving my hands down, I'm going to get my collarbones to pull towards my hips. Right, so that gives me a nice clean entry into shoulder flexion. You're only going to go as far as your shoulders allow you to, where you can maintain that push, or you relax and then come back out. So we're going to do a set of 10 liftoffs paired with a set of 5 eccentric knurl grooves. And then we'll see, maybe we have time to do a second set. That'd be cool. All right. So get yourself set up. I'm going to pick the collapse version. We're going to do one arm at a time here. Tuck your hand underneath your forearm, the other one that's not working. Take a full breath in. As you exhale, lift off. Slowly lower down. Try not to slam down. Control the way down. Let's go at tempo. Exhale, lift 2. Lift off 3. Lift off 4. Lift off 5. Lift off 6. Lift off 7. Try to reach your arms straighter and farther away from you. Lift off 8. Lift off 9. Lift off 10. Switch sides. Forehead down. Reach your arm away from you. Take a breath in. Exhale, lift off 1. Lower down. Lift off 2. Lift off 3. Lift off 4. Lift off 5. Keep your elbows straight. Lift off 6. Lift off 7. Lift off 8. Lift off 9. Lift off 10. Beautiful. We're going to go right back to the first side and do a second set before we move on. Okay, so adjust anything you need to. If there was one side where you lifted off the blocks or off the floor, and that was fine, maybe the other side didn't do that, you're going to have to adjust because both sides are independent. Right? So maybe for my left side, I can't lift off the block, so I get rid of it and I lift off the floor, but maybe my right side, I can have that, I have that clearance and that range to work. All right. So treat your sides as the separate entities that they are. Don't try to force symmetry where it's not present. Right arm forward, forehead down, take a breath in. Lift off 1. Try to lift off higher. Lift off 2. Squeeze out more range. Lift off 3. Lift off 4. Lift off 5. Lift off 6. Lift off 7. Lift off 8. Lift off 9. Lift off 10. Switch sides. Breath in. Reach your arm away from you. Lift off 1. 2. 3. Find a rhythm. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. And 10. Beautiful job. Let's put your tennis ball off to the side. You're going to stack your blocks up a little bit higher, come up to hands and knees. Take your hands on top of the blocks, kind of like the flexion work that we did. You're going to take your hands a little bit wider if you need that clearance for your shoulders, right? So maybe I've got some pinchy stuff up here I'm trying to work around for now. Just move your blocks out to the side, give yourself some more space. All right. Go ahead and set yourself up. Drive your hands down into the blocks, right? We might need a rep or two to adjust the distance of our knees from the blocks. Okay, so just give yourself that room to move. Take a breath in. Push your hands down and then start to move your hips back, right? So we want to feel that effort through the arms as they're lengthening, as they're getting to a stretch. Come all the way down into your end range. Make sure you can still push all the way through your end range. Relax, and then come on back up. Okay, we're gonna do a set of 10. You're gonna take 5 seconds to get down into your end range. So if you have more range, you're gonna move a little faster. If you have less range, you can move a little bit slower. Okay, take an inhale. Exhale, push down, keep breathing. 5, 4, move your sternum back. 3, 2, 1, relax, reset. Breath in, push. 5, pull your ribs down. 4, 3, 2, 1, relax. Come up. Breath in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Breath in. Push. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Push up halfway there. Breath in. Push out of the blocks. Move back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Push. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Push. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more. Breath in and push. Maybe find a little more spine flexion this time. 3, 2, 1. Relax. Last one, best one. Push down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. Very great. Great job, everyone. Okay, now we're gonna do one shoulder car just to kind of help put this in context, the shoulder flexion and internal rotation work that we've done. Grab your tennis ball. You could stand up, you could sit down, you can tall kneel, you can low kneel. Any of that is fine. Let's take our left hand across our rib cage to make sure that the sternum stays heavy. In fact, you might want to take your hand there. We're just trying not to pop the sternum up into the hand. Take your right arm across, take a breath in, squeeze a whole bunch. We want this to be a really high effort cart. Right now, find that range. Try to pull yourself actively into that range as you pull the sternum down away from the reach of the arm. Now turn, find that internal rotation that we did. Take it all the way back into extension, down to your waist, and reverse. Reach back. Find the edge, rotate. Squeeze a little harder, come up. Try to find that full range of motion. Cross your chest and back down. Switch sides. Breath in. And squeeze. As max effort to squeeze on your tennis ball as you can manage, right? Pull yourself into flexion. Find your full range here, but don't let the sternum pop up. Take it all the way around. And reverse, reach back. Right, try to make the circle bigger. Try to make your arm longer, right? All these little details will matter over time. Beautiful. Nice job, folks. Now we're gonna come down and work on some shoulder abduction. Now we might need more blocks, but we're gonna do the same thing as we did with the flexion work. Okay, so we're gonna just adjust. Hopefully, we'll just need 2 blocks. Most people are okay with 2 blocks. I have a ton of range of motion here, and 2 blocks is okay for me. So most people, I think, will be able to find at least some semblance of what we're looking for. You're gonna take your elbows straight out at shoulder height. Now, this is just a starting position. Again, we want to maintain some flexibility, so to speak, so that we can adjust up or down based on um, what our body is telling us. So some of us might need to be a little bit lower than shoulder height to avoid any kind of congestion work up here, or like a little bit closer to your rib cage. Most people, I think, are okay at shoulder height. We're going to do kind of the same thing. Once you stack your forearm onto your blocks, and again, you can switch around as many configurations as you need to get it right for you, because at the end, when we're in our range of motion, we shouldn't really be able to lift off the block because we want to try to be at our end range. Okay? So whatever that looks like for you is probably going to be different than what it looks like for someone else. Forearm on the block. Once you get yourself set, we're going to do the same thing that we did for flexion, in that we're going to take, I'm on my right side, so I'm going to take and kind of shift the right side of my rib cage over away from the block. And that will just give me a stronger stretch without needing to stack up my blocks any higher. Okay, at this point, I cannot lift off the block. So I'm at a good place. So just take a few moments to really get it right. So you want to make sure that we're in a place that will allow some sense of expansion of the capsule, right? That's what we're trying to get to. Making more workspace in your shoulder capsule. That's our intent here with our pails and rails. Okay, so just like our flexion, we're going to stay here for a little stretch. We're going to do a couple rounds of pails rails. If you want, you can play around with some neck positioning too. Turning your head away from your arm might give you a different sensation than keeping it neutral or turning your head towards your arm. So make sure all of your other joints are, not terribly upset at you right now. We want to make sure everything is as happy as it can be, so that we can actually do some work, right? Pain is kind of an inhibitor to getting productive work done. So we want to make sure that we limit that as much as possible. All right, slow breaths. This time we're breathing up into that armpit area and into the upper side ribs, right? I'm going to lift my head periodically to make sure you guys are kind of seeing what I'm doing. But you guys stay down in the stretch if you can, right? Trying to breathe kind of up into the armpit like we're, kind of ballooning it out with our breath, right? With our inhale. Slow breath in, slower breath out. We're going to stay for about 20 more seconds, and then we're going to go through some pails rails here, 2 rounds. If it becomes at any point too intense for you, take a break, come back to it, maybe just 1 pail rail for today. And maybe you do this class again and you try a second round or something later that day, right? So just give yourself the space to opt out of things if you feel it's not appropriate for you right now. Alrighty, we're gonna try our first round, our pails and rails. Super simple, we're just gonna push down and then try to lift up. Right? Keep your elbow reaching, take a breath in. Start to drive your forearm down into your blocks. All right, same process as before with the flexion. Ramp up to 50%. Ramp up to 75%, back off as you need to. Ramp up to 80%, 90%. Safest max effort here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Your forearm's going to get as light as possible by squeezing the back of your shoulder. Keep reaching your elbow away from you. 5, 4, 3, 2. Slowly relax. If you have some slack, you're going to move your rib cage over away from your blocks a little bit farther to maintain the stretch. Slow breath in. Slower breath out. Let's go 1 more round. Full breath in. Squeeze everything tight and then drive down a little bit, 25%. Ramp up to 50. Ramp up to 75. 90%. And your safest max effort, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reverse. Forearm gets as light as possible, but if you're at your end range, you're not going to be able to lift off. That's what we want. Back of the shoulders working really hard. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let yourself sink deeper into the stretch. Very slowly come out. Let's work on the other side. Right, all the same rules apply. Take a few moments to find the correct height for where you're at today. I should say where your left shoulder is, or whichever shoulder you didn't do first, right? Whichever shoulder is working. Make sure you're at its potential end range, right? That's what we're looking for. Shift the rib cage away from your blocks. Set your head down. And then nice slow breaths. Right? Billow up into the armpit, like we're actually using our lung to expand the ribs from the inside out, because that's actually what they're supposed to be doing, right? If we're taking those nice full breaths. And it's not that we have to get this breath as deep as we are now all the time. But we want to make sure that our brain understands that we have the capacity to go there. Right? That's really the intent, right? Because we're just feeding data into our nervous system. We're feeding different inputs into our nervous system, so it has a little more information to work with in terms of how it can produce force, how it can absorb force, how it can distribute forces across many different tissues instead of just, very specific ones that we use all the time. And that's how we create longevity here, is that we expand the usage of as many of our tissues as we can, so we can spread out the workload over time with whatever our shoulder is doing. Just a couple more breaths here. This position sometimes can be difficult to work with. Sometimes there's some nervy things that come up. If you have any nerviness, tingling, burning, anything like that, you might consider just lowering down a little bit into a slightly less range of motion. You might not be at your end range, but I think that's okay here because we don't want to move into any tingling, right? That's not something we want to do here. Alrighty, let's give it a try. Take a full breath in. You're going to squeeze everything tight and then start to drive down. All right, ramp up to 25%. Ramp up to 50%. Make sure we're feeling that effort where we feel the stretch. 75%. 90%. Your safest max effort, drive down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Contract the back of your shoulder. Right? You're trying to pull yourself deeper into it via the contraction of the back. Right? So squeezing here to try to drop my shoulder deeper into positioning. 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Slow breath in. Slower breath out. Take a breath. Drive down. Ramp up to 25%. Ramp up to 50, 75, 90, safest max. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reverse. Back of the shoulders working really hard. Think about widening the armpit, reaching the elbow away from you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Give yourself a moment here. And then come on back out. All right. We're going to do 2 more things for abduction. This one we're going to do eccentric neural grooving. So really similar to the flexion one where we're driving down, tensioning the stuff that's pulling into a stretch. We're going to do this for abduction as well. We're going to try it with a bent arm. If you feel like, we do this class again and you like to experiment with a straight arm, you're welcome to. I'm picking a bent arm today because it's just going to target some deeper pec minor tissues. That's what we're going after today. But you're welcome to experiment again, like shoulder maybe a little higher, elbow a little bit higher than your shoulder height, in line, or maybe a little bit below. Your arm could be bent or straight. Try to do it bent for this time around, and then when you do it again, you can experiment with a straighter arm. Okay? Really similar to the flexion work. Okay, we're going to tension the stuff that we're pulling into a stretch. We're going to use our other hand to pull our working shoulder into a stretch. So it's going to look like this, where I'm kind of using my hand to push me into a deeper range of motion, but this working arm is going to be driving down into the floor the entire time. Okay? If you have a lot of range of motion here, you're going to move a little bit faster. If you have less, you're going to move a little bit slower. We're going to try to take 5 seconds to get into our end range. We're just going to try 5 reps per side. Okay, so arm position in the approximate same place that we just did our pails and rails with. Opposite hand is in a push-up position. Take a full breath in. You're going to drive your arm down into the floor. Level of tension is up to you. You might increase it throughout the set. Maybe start with a little bit to see how you do. Right? Take an inhale. Keep driving your arm down and then push yourself into rotation. You're going to try to keep your shoulder close to the ground so we can stretch the pec tissue. 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Take a breath. Drive into the floor. Turn. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax back. Breath in. Drive down and turn. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. 2 more. You might go a little bit more effort now. Breath in. Drive down into the floor and turn. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Last one. Breath in. Push and turn. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And slowly relax. Let's try the other side. So depending on how that feels for you, you might be at a max effort, you might not be at a max effort. Anywhere in between is fine. You just want to make sure that you feel like you're working to some degree. So we really feel that tissue starting to contract. But you want to maintain whatever capacity it holds for today. Okay, let's switch sides. Lower body is just kind of doing what it does to accommodate. As you can see, I kind of move my legs around. That's really fine. You can do whatever you need to do to support the upper body work. Okay, arm out to the side. Push down. Try to keep the shoulder as close to the floor as you can so we can pull it into a stretch. All right, let's give it a go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Breath in. Push down with your working arm and turn. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Breath in. Push. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Breath in and push. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Last one. Breath in and push down. 5. Push through the wrist, push through the elbow, push through the upper arm. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Really nice, guys. Now we're going to do one more thing on our bellies. We're going to go for some abducted hovers. Now, if you only have 2 blocks, that is fine. If you have 4 blocks, you might give yourself a couple of other barriers to work around, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So we're going to take our arms out to the side. This is going to challenge your vestibular system in a much different way. It's going to challenge the receptors that you have in your shoulders to kind of see, right, the proprioceptors, so we can understand where we are in space. But we're not going to use our visual system to get there. We're just going to use, what's inherent to what's going on in the joint level. So you're going to set your blocks somewhere out to the side. Okay. Now this particular positioning doesn't matter so much, somewhere between abduction and flexion. So somewhere in this kind of quadrant up here, you're going to set your blocks up onto maybe the tall level, maybe the medium, maybe the lower level, depending on how far you can lift your arms. Our intent is to keep the rest of our body on the floor and to be able to lift up and over our blocks without looking at them. And then we're going to go back in the other direction. Okay. So if you have a ton of range of motion like I do, like I could probably stand to put another block underneath both of my blocks for, but for today I'm just going to keep it like this so you can see. But this is kind of like a passive range liftoff where we want to be close to our end range. So we have to force our body to effort a little bit harder. So we're trying to recruit more of our shoulder stuff to do this work. Okay. So ideally, on both sides, I would probably be somewhere up here where I really have to work very hard to lift up and over, right? You don't want this to be a walk in the park. You want this to be effortful so we can stimulate the right adaptations. And that's what we want. The intensity has to be there to stimulate change. Okay, but regardless, if you don't set it up quite the height that you need for the first one, you're gonna do the class again anyway, and we can change it up next time you do it. All right, but it's all about just sensing where things are in space without actually having to look at them. We're gonna try for about 1.5 minutes, maybe even 2 minutes. You're just gonna go at a steady pace up and over your blocks, and you're going to try to squeeze out a little bit more range every time you do a rep. All right, we're going to give it a try. Take your arms out to the sides, just in front of your blocks. Keep your tailbone reaching down, the back of your skull reaching, so a slight tuck to the chin to keep the neck long. Take an inhale, squeeze really tight, and lift up and over. Land softly, and then repeat. And we're just going to keep going like this. Okay, if you hit the block, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all a learning process, so mistakes are great for learning. Not that it's a mistake, it's just a, kind of a blip. Every time you lift, see if you can reach your arms a little farther away from you. All right, improving the wingspan here is kind of what we want. But by reaching your knuckles away from you, we're actually lengthening through the shoulder blades as well. You're trying to give your spine a little more space, trying to protract the shoulder blades, give us a little bit more clearance in the upper regions of the spine. I'm going to lift my head periodically just to look at my time. We're just about at a minute here. Okay, go nice and slow. You don't have to go fast. Just pick a steady tempo and try to stick with that. I know your shoulders are starting to burn, because mine are. Smooth and steady with the breath. If you feel so daring and you do this class again, you might actually do this with some weight in your hands, but I recommend starting with, a half a pound, something like that, because this gets really heavy really fast, and you can, I'm sure, feel that, even though we're just holding tennis balls today. All right, keep trying to tuck your chin in and lengthen out the back of your neck so that the neck doesn't get too overly involved with it. Although, it's going to be working, so that's okay. If you feel that, you're not doing anything wrong. We have about 10 seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Whew. That is a burner for sure. Alrighty, now we're gonna come up to a seat. This you can do standing. You can do kneeling. You can sit on some blocks. Any of that is fine. We're gonna do something called a continuous effort zone set for shoulder abduction. We're just going to do a band pull apart for those of you that may be familiar with this. But we're going to work in 3 different zones. We're going to work a high zone, a middle zone, and a lower zone. We're going to try 30 seconds per zone. Ideally, we would kind of fail at each zone, and gravity would help you kind of fail there. So it's not that we have to stay here. I want you to works in such a way that you sort of succumb to gravity and your arms just kind of naturally drop down over the course of the set. So by the time we're reaching this lower level, we're pretty cooked, right? We're at total like abducted failure. The back of our shoulders are like toast, right? That's kind of what we're looking for here. I'd recommend starting with a very light band, a micro band if you can, or a TheraBand or something like that, because it's going to be a long set and it's the end of some of the stuff that we've already done. So we're already fatigued here. Do be mindful of the rib cage, because as we get tired, your rib cage is going to want to do more and more. Try to stay really heavy through the sternum. Your elbows are going to stay as straight as possible, and you're going to try to maintain as much of that reach out of our arms as we can, right? So we're going for this kind of movement where our spine is nice and straight, our ribs are tucked down, and then we're really isolating the work through the abductors of the shoulder. Okay, we're going to give it a try. Palms facing up. Start as high as you can. If you need more tension on the band, walk your hands closer together. If you need less, walk them apart. Okay, this is a heroic set. Let's go. Take a full breath in, reach through the arms, and then begin. All right, try to pull your arms so far apart that we feel the work in the back of your shoulders. Okay, kind of impossible not to at this point, right? You can see my arms are lowering down, and that's okay. They're starting high and lowering down as I'm pulling the band apart. That's okay. All right, we're going to stay as high as we can. You might even explore some space up here where your arms are a little higher and your band is going behind your head. All right, so that's an option too. Periodically looking over at my time, keep going. We're going to come down to sort of the middle zone. So come down kind of face height, shoulder height, and continue to pull apart. All right, continue to stay really lifted through the backs of your ribs, right? Keep lifting them off your pelvis. Right, I know we're feeling some good burn here. We have about 10 seconds left in this zone, right? If you're fatiguing, your arms are probably starting to drop down already. That's okay. That's what we're looking for. All right, let's go in this final zone right here. Stick with it as best you can. Stick with it as best you can. We're almost there. We have about 20 seconds to go. All right, maybe even drop a little bit lower so we can get some of these lower fibers. And you can see my band isn't really pulling a whole part. I'm trying to keep tension on the band the whole time. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Oof. Oh man, throw your band away. That was tough. All righty. But you guys did it. You did great. Okay, we're gonna roll out the neck a little bit, and then we're gonna set up for some breath work. All right. So sit up nice and tall. Let your shoulders be nice and relaxed. Really easy neck cars. Okay, like 30, 40% tension, really easy, but still mindful, right? Just because we're not using a lot of tension doesn't mean we're gonna get sloppy with these. All the same things apply. Try to keep your shoulders really still. Try to keep your rib cage in place. Let's try a couple in the other direction. Right, as much as we try not to involve the neck, it's always going to be involved when we do upper body stuff, especially as specific as we did today. So don't be surprised if you feel this in your neck. You didn't do anything wrong. It's actually good. We want to train that tissue as well, because it's just like every other tissue. We got to train it to adapt it, to change it. So if you want to change how your neck feels, you got to get over the fear of actually feeling some things happen in your neck. All right, so great job with this first part. I'll see you in a moment for some breath work.